There you are. All right, without any other ado, Stuart Tomc, the expert.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here. When we look at this leaf, we get a tiny bit of feedback, but we'll figure that out here in a second. When we look at this particular leaf, there cannot be another plant that elicits such a powerful gut visceral reaction. Let's just face it, we come to this conversation with some powerful preconceived ideas about what this plant represents and maybe what it doesn't represent. So I'd like to start with just embracing the idea of a big idea. A big idea, there's big resistance. Little idea, little resistance. No idea, no resistance at all. This is a big idea. There's a lot of resistance to it simply because of that taboo that has been hard-baked, if you will, into our misunderstanding or our perceived understanding of this plant. So as we embark on this conversation here together, let's set the tone with this, what I think is a very apropos quote. Move my little chair like this. They're just blocking here. And this says it quite well. There's nothing more difficult to carry out, nor more doubtful of success, nor more dangerous to handle, than to initiate a new order of things. For the reformer has enemies in all of those who profit by the old order. So just what is at stake if the very, very first domesticated plant that, bless you, that we have been told has no proven medical value, what if that plant that grows like a weed, that you can grow in your backyard or your front yard or anywhere, turns out to be the treasure trove of botanical healing that it appears to be? What is at stake? There's a tremendous amount at stake. And when you look at the growth of this particular industry, it's sort of unlike anything that we've ever seen before. And that means it might attract a lot of bad actors to the conversation. So it's my hope this evening to teach you a little bit about the endocannabinoid system. I know that's a big term, but it was discovered in 1992, and we didn't even know that we had it. You, bless you, all of us here, every one of us, we make marijuana-like compounds in our bodies all day long as need be. Were you aware of that? And we have receptor sites in our brain and in our bodies for these endogenous, meaning your body makes cannabis-like compounds. The God-created, human-made, that you make in your body. When you run, when you're running a marathon and you feel extraordinary, what is the feeling that's going through your body that makes you feel so good? We call it the runner's high. You're going to learn tonight that you make a compound called anandamide, which means bliss in Sanskrit. It's the bliss neurotransmitter. You make a compound that's a marijuana-like compound all day long, and that's what the runner's high is from. And you're going to learn how what this plant does here is the plant interrupts the metabolism of your body's cannabis-like compounds. I'll say that again. When you take these compounds from the plant, they disrupt the metabolism of your body's endocannabinoids. We're going to unpack that together. We're going to learn about this together. And if you're sitting here thinking, wow, this is going to be a lot to take in, you're right. This is like drinking from a fire hose of brand new knowledge, because it is new. And does that make us feel a little uncomfortable when it's new and we don't know the terms? Absolutely. And I want you to know that we've had medical doctors across the country respond the same way. So it's okay for us not to know. We're going to make the best case that we can. So let's imagine 20 people sitting around a campfire that are terminally ill and decide to start using hemp CBD or medical cannabis or whatever they choose to use. Now just visualize this with me. You've got 20 people around a campfire, they're terminally ill, they've tried everything, nothing has worked. A portion of those people claim to have relief from symptoms. Somebody actually thinks they're cured. A couple of people say, that stuff is not for me, and there's one or two people that say, never, ever again. I don't want the stuff, it makes me feel terrible. Have we all heard these stories before? Have we heard these stories before about this plant? That's been the reason why it's been so difficult to control it, because there are 540 different compounds in the cannabis plant and 104 cannabinoids. So we haven't even really known what those individual compounds do. So for our time tonight, why don't we use something simple? Let's think of green tea. Green tea has caffeine and theanine, stimulant, anxiolytic. One gets you up, one relaxes you. The caffeine gets you up, the theanine relaxes you. The cannabis plant has hundreds of cannabinoids, but THC may be a bit of the stimulant, and the CBD may be a bit more of the anxiolytic. The gas and the brake, if you will, working together. So keep that in mind as we try to unpack this miraculous plant. Let's get back to the campfire. Some people that claim that they got benefit from cannabis or CBD and others didn't. So often scientists would say, well, you can't really prove if it works. Well, this concept of what's being called clinical endocannabinoid deficiency, CECD, was first postulated back in 2004 by the great Ethan Rousseau. Ethan Rousseau was the senior medical advisor at the time for GW Pharmaceuticals, the leading player in the CBD hemp cannabinoid space is a pharmaceutical company from the UK called GW Pharmaceuticals. So listen to this concept. If dementia in Alzheimer's disease is due to the lack of acetylcholine activity, and Parkinson's is due to dopamine deficiency, and depression is secondary to lower levels of serotonin and norepinephrine, what if the people around the campfire that used the cannabis that got benefit had a very, very low hypoactive endocannabinoid tone? Meaning, someone responds to iron because they're low in iron. And they take the iron and they feel so great and they think more is better. We usually find out that's not the case. But somebody that's, say, deficient in vitamin D like David, that takes vitamin D, they get results. Somebody that's deficient in vitamin C like Charlie, they take vitamin C, they get results. Someone that's deficient in omega-3, because we did the blood test, we find out that they need more omega-3, they get results. Is everybody following this? This is a very logical way to look at this. Responders and non-responders. I'm tired of this. Almond butter is good for you. No, it's not. It's very, very bad for people that are allergic to almonds. Okay? So the fact that we started with one patient, you, and then we had to prove it with 10,000 patients to prove that you got the benefit you got, now we find out women respond differently than men, right? Not everybody in every scientific study needs to be a middle-aged white guy, right? They figured there were differences there. There are genetic differences, allelic differences. We are all so different. And that's important to keep in mind. But this really should explain this concept of the benefit of these compounds in migraine, fibromyalgia, and irritable bowel syndrome, and other treatment-resistant conditions. This was good, Ray. I saw you had an aha moment here. I'm going to ask everybody that works here in the store, and every patient here, every customer here, how do we do with natural compounds for migraine, fibromyalgia, irritable bowel, and those other pesky treatment-resistant conditions that seem to go on and on and on? How do we do treating those things? Not so well. We don't, do we? Well, what if the reason for that is you have an endocannabinoid system discovered in 1992. They're not even teaching yet about in medical school. And because of prohibition, these compounds were illegal and you couldn't get them. For these people, they were responders. So anybody that's a migrainer, like my wife, anyone struggling with fibromyalgia or irritable bowel, pay very, very close attention to this, because this endocannabinoid deficiency may be corrected easily by taking some CBD and bringing our bodies back into balance. So how can this stuff help you? The low-hanging fruit, and I'll explain all the mechanisms of action, but while we're still totally, fully awake, the low-hanging fruit is nervous system health, mood, anxiety, restorative sleep, and circadian rhythm optimization. So I don't want anybody raising their hands, I don't want anyone feeling awkward or uncomfortable, but just check in with yourself. Do you handle stress? Do you know how to handle stress? What does that mean? When you are put in multiple different stressful situations, Do you retain your homeostasis? That's the only measure of homeostasis that matters. We are seeing more and more that people cannot deal with stress. Is there a chance that it isn't just that we're weak and that the generational shift has caused all kinds of, we can't tough it out anymore? What if endocannabinoid tone or dysfunction that can be driven by dietary and lifestyle generation after generation has caused people to have such poor endocannabinoid tone that they really need this stuff to feel good in their own skin? We're finding that's the case. The next area would be sleep. If we don't sleep, we're never going to be healthy, period. We have to sleep. We don't sleep enough. We need restorative sleep. The endocannabinoid system regulates how you eat, sleep, protect, and forget, among many other things. So if you're looking for sleep and you haven't found it yet, and you've tried melatonin and rescue remedy and kava kava and lemon balm, and the list goes on, and passion flower, and I've lived on those things my whole life, you might want to try out CBD. The next area is metabolic health, cardiometabolic health. If you don't sleep, you don't burn enough energy, period. So we need to optimize sleep to optimize cardiometabolic health. Well, CBD not only helps you sleep, but it increases insulin sensitivity, the same target as the blood sugar handling drugs. I'll say it again. The exact same target in the body that glucophage and the blood sugar handling drugs go after, CBD speaks to that receptor site as well. And then for management of central obesity, adipokine and myokine profile. We don't want to lose weight. We say that, we don't lose weight. You want to lose this, just right here, that's it. The byproduct of a balanced endocannabinoid system is increased insulin sensitivity, and you stay asleep. So there's more beige, more brown adipose tissue, more thermogenesis. You become more efficient. What we're talking about is unlocking human potential. Because you have receptor sites. You have receptor sites for nicotine, for opiates. There are no receptor sites for ashwagandha. It's a great product, I love it. This is in a completely different class. Stress resilience, heart rate variability. If we can't balance para and sympathetic nervous response, you're not going to be able to handle stress. Dysregulation in the endocannabinoid system has been implicated in why people do not have heart coherence. So under tremendous stress and pressure, CBD may, see how I'm using those words, help you balance endocannabinoid tone, which in turn could help with stress, recovery and adaptation in sports nutrition. You don't take CBD before you exercise, you take it before you exercise. Think about that. You don't take it after. A lot of people thought, oh, you just work out and then take some CBD, it's a bit of an anti-inflammatory. What we're finding is if you're doing any competitive kind of exercising or anything where you're, like I don't like being in a gym. Go to yoga class, I kind of feel weird, all crammed in there sometimes. I live in California now. I was born and raised in Chicago, so it's a bit of a culture shock. Getting used to California a bit. The health food store that I live close to, there's a gym across the street. They're all using CBD before they work out for CrossFit and for yoga. The idea was simple. They realized this. Get ready, get set. That's not healthy. That may not be healthy, right? And so you want to be in a place where you're comfortable within your own skin while you're trying to deal with yourself, supporting the immune system. CBD is non-redundant for other anti-inflammatories because it works more at the level of TNF-alpha, which we'll talk a little bit later about. So it's got its own unique anti-inflammatory mechanisms. And we've all heard about Ebola, since that came out not too long ago. And Ebola isn't what gets you. You get you. Your immune system is trying to get the Ebola. It's called a cytokine storm. It's so powerful. CBD dampens hyperactive cytokine storms. What does that mean? Anyone that has an autoimmune condition should be paying very, very close attention to the mechanisms of action. And finally, GI health. If you don't have a regular bowel movement, after you sleep restoratively, you're not going to optimize your health. CBD seems to have this ability to unlock true human potential because it's balancing your endogenous system. So let's dive into this. What we're doing is bringing this stuff back. This is American. We grew more hemp in America than anywhere. We were losing it in the Philippines. We had to grow it in Kentucky to make hemp for rope to fight the Germans to win the Second World War. With the greatest hemp production in America, you can't even imagine how beautiful it was. 20 foot tall it grew in Kentucky. All those genetics are gone, completely destroyed, and now we've got to bring hemp back. It was also in the U.S. Pharmacopoeia and was the recommended natural medicine of choice in the 1930s before it completely disappeared. And I'll show you some vintage bottles that ought to tell a story.
Pennsylvania is huge.
And, yes, this was a huge hemp place as well. Now, this paper, I'm trying to look for things that cut right through the chatter. There is a lot of misinformation online. There are a few radio shows that you can listen to where you're going to get accurate information with my main man Jim Wilk back there. But for the most part, there's a lot of marketing out there. Would we all agree with that? Everyone's trying to sell you something, and everyone thinks they're right and everyone else is wrong. So let's look for original source information. Anytime you see National Institutes of Health, this is a good sign. And when you see public access, well, that's, I think, an even better sign, because this is information that's available. So this was peer-reviewed. This was published back in 2013. Now, you've learned about the endocannabinoid system. We're going to do it again. Receptors in the brain and the body, enzymes that create and inactivate them. Receptors in the brain and in the body, enzymes that create and inactivate them, and you make your cannabinoids from fatty acids. You make your endocannabinoids from omega-6 arachidonic acid. So it's already in your tissues, and your body decides there's a lot of stress here, we need to deal with it. So it upregulates some receptor sites, and then it cleaves arachidonic acid from the cell membrane, and it doesn't just convert it into pro or anti-inflammatory compounds. It can convert it into these cannabis-like compounds in our body that keep us healthy and keep us balanced. So modulating the system, because that's what you're here to learn about tonight. Great, prohibition is over, it's ending. That's the discovery, the endocannabinoid system. May have therapeutic potential in almost all diseases affecting humans, including obesity, metabolic syndrome, diabetes and diabetic complications, neurodegenerative, inflammatory, cardiovascular, liver, gastrointestinal, skin diseases, pain, psychiatric disorders, cachexia, cancer, chemotherapy-induced nausea and vomiting, among many others. How is it possible? Because the endocannabinoid system is your master control system, designed to keep you balanced and healthy. And we didn't know about it until 1992, and because of prohibition, you never had access to medication to talk to it. Fair enough? So let's learn about the ECS. We have plant cannabinoids. These are plants, they come from the hemp plants, outside the body. The ones your body makes endogenous inside, these are the ones that we make from arachidonic acid. Now, when you are running and you're feeling fantastic, you've got the runner's high, you feel amazing, you're flooding your body with anandamide. Remember I said bliss in Sanskrit? The bliss neurotransmitter. So your body makes these endocannabinoids all day long. Now check this out. When you eat CBD, when you eat the CBD, it takes the enzymes that inactivate these little guys and it puts them on the timeout mat. What does that mean? The endocannabinoids have more time to speak to the receptors in your brain and in your body. Let me do that again, because that's a lot to take in. When you consume the product, when you consume the CBD, the enzymes that degrade the endocannabinoids are inactivated, which means that the endocannabinoids hang around longer. Is everybody following me? They have longer connection time, right? Normally they're created and degraded and created and degraded. If the enzymes are gone, you get a longer transmission time. So then the endocannabinoids speak to the cannabinoid receptors in the brain and in the body. Now the most abundant receptor in your brain, CB1, is the most abundant receptor in the human brain. Isn't that fascinating? What does that tell you about our potential relationship to the endocannabinoid system, not the phytocannabinoids? So I'll say this once so everybody knows this. When you take CBD, you don't get high. No, you don't. You have anandamide speaking to the CB1 receptor, and that's the runner's high. So you actually get high on your own supply, which is much better than getting high on something outside of your body. Now, it has other tremendous medical benefits, but that sense of well-being and comfort in your skin happens through a lot of this mechanism. And then the CB2 receptor, that's found mostly within the immune system but there's a lot more to learn. So when you have 10 seconds to explain to your friends what you're into, and they say, why are you taking that CBD? Isn't that stuff pot? We're going to talk about that in a moment. You say, no, no, no. Did you know your body makes cannabis-like compounds? And CBD balances the master control system that balances us. And for the people that respond, they get tremendous results. It's a great way to explain it. So here's an Eli Lilly product from 1906. See, it says cannabis right here. Eli Lilly in Indianapolis, Indiana. And there were 27 different competing products back at that time. It was a competitive market, just like it is today. Now check this out, bless you. If you went to the pharmacist and you wanted an analgesic besides morphine, they might have recommended the safe, natural, plant-based alternative. Isn't that cute? If you were tired of the sedatives, you know, laudanum, belladonna, you know, real fun stuff, and you wanted something safe, healthy, natural, holistic, this stuff. They knew that it was an anti-inflammatory. They knew it was an antispasmodic. They used it to treat epilepsy in the 14th century. This is not a new idea at all. Now, what kind of material did they use back then? Does anybody think 100 years ago that they were growing marijuana indoors to extract it to make this product from Eli Lilly? Were they doing that back then? What were they using? Hemp! They called it Indian hemp, or ditchweed as my grandfather used to call it. Low to no THC, high CBD, wild cultivars of hemp, all over the earth, waiting for us to notice. Right? We looked at everything else, but that was taboo, so we couldn't look at it. Once we started looking at it, then we found this. And I'd like to point this out here. In 1940, for anyone who thinks it's new, it has been given the name cannabidiol. It has none of the physiological activity typical of marijuana. So it is not the same thing, and we're going to get into that in a moment. But before we do that, I want to show you a video clip from CNN, from Sanjay Gupta's specials called Weed 1, Weed 2, and Weed 3. I wish it had a different name, because it keeps people from wanting to watch it. But I want you to watch this little clip for a few minutes that really set the stage for CBD, okay?
And this might be hard for some of you to watch.
It's okay, baby.
This is their daughter Charlotte, having a seizure.
We just thought it was just a one.
By the time she was 2, though, the seizures had become constant and started to take their toll on their once happy, joyful little girl.
She started to really decline cognitively, and she was slipping away, and she just wasn't keeping up with her twins.
The Figgies finally found an answer, and it was awful news. Dravet syndrome. It is severe, intractable epilepsy. The seizures start during the first year of life and are unstoppable. As a last resort, doctors wanted to either prescribe a powerful veterinary drug used on epileptic dogs or put Charlotte in a medically induced coma so her brain and body could rest. For Paige, those were not good options. But maybe, just maybe, marijuana now was.
She'd failed everything. There were no more options for her. Everything had been tried, except cannabis.
Here's how scientists think it might work. Marijuana is made up of 2 ingredients. THC, that's the psychoactive part that makes you high, and CBD, also called cannabidiol. It's the CBD that scientists think modulates electrical and chemical activity to help quiet the excessive activity in the brain that causes seizures.
The work on cannabis and epilepsy was sort of inconclusive. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. They couldn't quite figure it out. And it's only when they really started separating THC from CBD that they saw, definitively, yes, CBD seems to really stop seizures.
And it's research that could give hope to patients like Charlotte Figge. Been able to show that it can decrease the amount of brain damage from head injuries in mice.
To be able to give a medicine after the injury to reverse some of the damage, that's huge.
You'll literally see Charlotte's brain making connections that haven't been made in years. It's almost seeming to build her brain, where before it seemed broken.
Is that not remarkable? I remember watching that for the first time, bless you, with my wife and my child as we were considering taking this job. I was the spokesperson for Nordic Naturals, which I'm sure you're familiar with. Prior to that, I helped build North American Herb and Spice, the oil of oregano company. I worked with Dr. Ingram for about close to 10 years there. I'm a lifer here. I used to work in a health food store like Ray's. I don't know if you remember Sherwin's in Chicago. I used to run the juice bar there for Sherwin's, right there on Diversity. So my whole life has been dedicated to this industry, and more importantly, easing the suffering of others. And as there were a few questions about the newness of this ingredient and maybe the regulatory compliance pathway, I watched that. I didn't care. And I still don't care. Because our job is to make meaning and to make the world a better place. And if there's a plant that we can grow like corn or soy, and you're going to see our crops in huge amounts to make this stuff available for a lower and lower and lower price to a suffering community, that is the right thing to do for the right reason, and that's why we're doing it. So when you watch something like that, that should remind you that we're dealing with a compound more powerful than any plant compound we've had our hands on. And Nat Geo and Time Magazine last summer, they did cover stories about cannabis. And this $200,000 ad ran in the New York Times for a website called Leafly.com just to get information. Now I know you can't see all the way in the back, so I'll read it. It says, while beating cancer, Ian used Blue Dream. Molly prefers Kali Mist to relieve pain. What's your strain? It's a whole new conversation, isn't it? Now, if you can get most, or if not all, most of the benefits of medical cannabis with something safe, doesn't get you high, it's legal, that is effective for inflammation, anxiety, for pain, how much bigger is this market? Think about that. Infinitely larger. So this group, Leafly.com, they're now outranking WebMD. They hired people from Time and from Microsoft, so they're people to follow. We started writing articles for them over the last couple years about CBD and the science around CBD, and the demand is unbelievable. People want to know, and they want to know now. So you can all revel in the idea that when you see headlines like this, science is linked, the ECS with complex processes from anxiety to immunity. And this research bonanza is revealing more and more about the master control system and its shining star, CBD. So why is CBD the shining star of the master control system? There are 104 other cannabinoids. There's an entire plant. Why is CBD different, and why is it special? This is the United States patent for cannabinoids as antioxidants and neuroprotectants. Remember the look on Sanjay Gupta's eyes? The doctor said something you can give to the animal after the traumatic brain injury. Remember hearing that? To reverse some of the damage. What did she say? That's huge. So back in 2003, our government saw the wisdom in patenting these cannabinoids. They saw that back in 2003. So listen to what they say. The cannabinoids are found to have limiting neurological damage following ischemic insults such as stroke or trauma, or in the treatment of neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV dementia. Did you hear that properly? Did you hear that properly? This is Uncle Sam. Now who's the inventor? Julius Axelrod. Does anyone recognize his name? He won the Nobel Prize for his discovery of neurotransmission. So you've got Uncle Sam out of one side of the mouth saying there is no medical benefit, and that's a smoking gun. It says right here, in the treatment of Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, and HIV dementia. Unlike anything we've seen with a natural compound, listen to what it says. Non-psychoactive cannabinoids. Remember, why is CBD the shining star? Such as CBD are particularly advantageous to use because they avoid the toxicity that is encountered with psychoactive cannabinoids. What does that mean? CBD can keep you healthy and doesn't get you high. If you took enough THC to be both an antioxidant and a neuroprotectant, you'd be so stoned you wouldn't be functional. Can you see why this is a bigger market? Can we see why this is a much bigger market? Because if we can give those benefits without the risks, that's what people are looking for. So if you want to stay informed and you want to follow our webinars, we keep making them more and more available. We'll get a flyer rate put together. All your customers can listen to webinars. I have a webinar on this topic narrated by Michael Lewis. You might not recognize Michael Lewis's name. Medical doctor, Masters of Public Health, MBA, and some other alphabet soup. West Point grad, Army Ranger, was at the Pentagon for 31 years. Oh, he took care of the justices of the Supreme Court. He also did. You think that's mainstream? It's about as mainstream. Military medicine is as mainstream as you're going to get. This guy thinks it's the greatest compound he's ever found. So we have those kind of people. Dr. Gupta is not big on omega-3. How's that? How can he not be big on omega-3? He's not even big on vitamin D. And he's into CBD, just to contextualize that. So look at all the things it does. CBD can be anti-inflammatory. It can be immunosuppressive. Think about that, how powerful the compound can be. Bone stimulant, analgesic, anti-cirrhotic, anti-diabetic, antibacterial, anti-proliferative, anti-neuroprotective, vasorelaxant, antispasmodic, anxiolytic, antipsychotic, anti-epileptic. It's a treasure trove of healing that we need to learn about. So how do we learn about it? There's one place to go for information, pubmed.gov. For those of you writing notes, pubmed.gov. Why? It's the U.S. National Library of Medicine, the National Institutes of Health. In my humble opinion, this is the best place to get information. And I'm not going to mention anybody who's a celebrity in our industry, but there are a lot of websites that send out daily newsletters that seem to have an agenda, in my opinion. And what I like about here, we're going to go right to the science. We're going to type in CBD and look at this, 1,482 papers. Do you know what that means? You know what that means? There's almost no science. There's almost no science. It's very new because it was under prohibition. How many papers, if you type in omega-3, how many do you think come up? 25,000. There's 1,482. You know what that means? If you actually read some of these papers and studied this, you would know more than 99.9% of the people alive on the planet. It's a remarkable opportunity to get a ringside seat to the most exciting narrative in health we've ever seen. This is my main job. I don't know if you can tell. What I'm trying to sell you right now is in following this story more than buying any other product. Because when you follow the science, when you see it for yourself, you will become a believer. So let me show you the first paper we submitted to PubMed, so you can see the good deeds we're doing, the good deeds and due diligence we're doing. Here's our first case report. The author, Scott Shannon, MD. Does anyone recognize Dr. Shannon's name? Integrative psychiatrist. 40 years ago was saying, our kids are acting like they are because we're feeding them Pop-Tarts with yellow food number 11, red dot. He knew it. Everyone thought he was a whack job back then. And now people are listening to him. Cannabidiol for decreasing addictive use of marijuana, a case report. It's a raised point, it's not marijuana. We use it to get people off marijuana. If you want to prove it's not marijuana, it's different, you better have some science to support it, right? So let's listen closely. The patient was a 27-year-old male who presented a long-standing diagnosis of bipolar disorder and a daily addiction to marijuana. He's from Colorado. His friends told him, smoke some more weed, man. I heard that's good for stress. I saw that online. You know what we found out with this guy? It was the worst possible thing he could take because he's allergic to it. Genetically, he's allergic to it. The plant isn't bad. He's allergic to almond butter. He shouldn't be eating almonds. Do you get the analogy? He did not do well with cannabis. It made him worse. If you have a predisposition to schizophrenia or major depressive disorders, stay away from THC for the rest of your life. Seriously. If you have a huge disposition for that, you could hasten the psychosis. This is beautiful. In the described intervention, the only change made to the patient's treatment was the addition of CBD oil with the dosage gradually decreasing from 24. You had an aha moment. I look for those aha moments in the audience. Decreasing. We're not switching seats on the Titanic. This isn't just like take the addiction and put it somewhere else. We gave this person back their lives. The entire report is in your folder, which you can read at your own leisure, at your own time, and go through there and hand it out to people. Now his center where he's working is called the Wholeness Center, a new vision of natural mental health and integrative medicine. Now, I would suggest that integrative mental health is where we need to pay closer attention to. Because we've done a good job of helping people with blood sugar and helping them understand probiotics and omega-3 and eating greens, but how are we doing in terms of mental health? As a society, how are we doing? Pretty bad. Pretty bad. We have more people that are ripped than ever, so they look good right on the beach. But the mental health is in a very, very bad place. Not only in my opinion, I think in all of our opinions. So we want to focus on things like CBD that might help us give back some strong mental health. So if you take a look at his case series, which is more than one patient is exciting, it's so new. How about 136 patients? This is the most data we have on hemp-derived CBD in a human clinical setting anywhere in the world. It's that new. 136 patients treated in the clinic, this clinic, up to 9 months, 27 pediatric patients, 59 had 3 months or more of data. We are on the bleeding edge. So here's his summary. Cannabis has a long tradition in the healing arts. The endocannabinoid system plays a central role in most biological systems. CBD seems to be well tolerated and have a calming effect on the central nervous system. And this next bullet point, this is how we should all speak. CBD could become a useful tool for a range of psychiatric disorders in the future. And if we keep it like that, we're going to be able to keep this ingredient. Does that make sense? Let's let these kind of people flush out the exact milligram amount for a particular diagnosis. I'm going to show you in a few minutes how I think we can use the products, but does it make sense? If you raise your hand right now, if you're dying to ask me, then how many milligrams do I take for ADHD? I hope you know there is no answer to that question yet. Do we get that point? It could be 3 milligrams. It could be 175 milligrams. It could be 0 milligrams. Why? There's no way to measure endocannabinoid tone with a PET scan in a living human being. There's no anatomical or any measurement of any kind to measure the activity of this system. You see where that would be difficult to treat? So we are the bleeding edge. We are the cutting edge, and that's exciting, but keep in mind what it means. So in October of this year, he's going to teach this information online to doctors worldwide. We're going to get the word out there in an authentic way. I hope you can appreciate that, right? You know what we did here? We funded, we gave the CBD, we helped to support the research, so when it gets out there, it's about the science and not our company. So October, 30 hours of CME, and listen to this. It sounds like you are at a Holly Hill training. Listen to this. Topics: micronutrients, gut microbiome. It sounds like a Jim Wilk radio show. Toxins, inflammation, hormones, diet, mind, body, and more. Yeah, they're getting it. They're getting it. They're getting you. They're getting what you want to know. And they're testing it in their way. 4 psychiatrists with 85 years of collective experience. So 4 MDs with 85 years of collective experience saying CBD is amazing. We want to be listening to these people and not marketing people. Do we agree with that? Let's continue. Does everyone here know the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine? Does anyone know that group? Okay, and you have this also in your folder. So this has been produced the way the other report was produced to be available for everybody. So let's take a look at this chapter, chapter 10. Medical and nutritional applications for CBD, hemp health benefits without THC. Let's look at the author. Joseph Maroon, MD. Does anyone know Dr. Maroon? I know Ray does. For those of you that don't know Dr. Maroon, he is a board-certified neurosurgeon, senior vice president for this organization, Heidel Scholar in Neurosciences, University of Pittsburgh, School of Medicine, and team neurosurgeon for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Do you think that's mainstream? West Point, Pentagon, NFL? You think this is a joke? I wear a suit and tie, ask Ray, every single time you've ever seen me. Because we're mainstreaming the most controversial plant in the history of natural medicine. So you better do it with authority, and you better do it with people that have these kind of credentials. Do you agree with that? Because that's how people take it seriously. Here's what he says. The current state of CBD research is still in its early phases, and large randomized studies will be needed before mainstream acceptance occurs, right? Look at the Prevagen commercial. Think about that. That started on Doug Kaufman's TV show. Do we all know that? They're playing that on the news like over and over. We are the incubator, right? This is the early adopter market. Early adopters are reporting human health benefits that will demand further investigation and confirmation over time. Now, there's a lot of debate about marijuana. Let's listen to what the NFL neurosurgeon says. We believe at this time that hemp-based CBD. Does it say smoke dope? No. It says hemp-based CBD is a novel supplement. I got a problem with medical marijuana. It's a medicine. It treats, cures, and mitigates, ameliorates a disease or disease symptom, and by definition, it needs to be a drug according to the FDA. We could have just called it a botanical extract, right? That's what we should have just called it. But hemp-based CBD is a novel supplement that with further study could indeed have a profound effect on improving human health. This is what we know. This is how we should speak. We should not say, how many milligrams do I need to treat cancer, right? We can study that ourselves privately, but this is telling us we're on the right track. So at Expo West, and I exhibited all the big trade shows, I think that these fine folks were at the last talk. I had these paddles that I gave everybody. I'm up on stage. Green is yes, red is no. And I asked everybody, because this is a brand new ingredient, it's changing the marketplace, how many, all retailers pretty much, how many of you are stocking CBD in your stores? Look at that. Now, 1 year ago, we had about 50 health food stores. 1 year ago. This was one of the very, very first accounts here at Holly Hill. Because they're visionaries where you've always been. I'm not trying to flatter you. You saw the new thing, and you wanted to get good, new, exciting, powerful stuff. In that year, we've gone from 50 to 756 stores, 350 doctor's offices, and 50 cooperatives. In 1 year. With an ingredient that people still don't understand, and some people think we shouldn't have. It's, why did it get that kind of viral adoption? Any idea? Because it works. Raspberry flavored ketones don't work. And a lot of the stuff that Dr. Oz was selling didn't work, and it was bad for our industry, right? Don't sell people things that don't work. Because this works so well, people have to carry it. It's that effective. So here's a set in Louisiana, Monroe, Louisiana. And every once in a while someone says to me, we're too conservative here. And I say, well, I know Angie and Tim and Monroe, Louisiana. I can promise you they are more conservative than you. I know that for a fact because Tim also used to be a sheriff. There's a sheriff that owns this health food store in the Deep South. And you know why they love CBD? It comes from hemp. Betsy Ross's flag was made on hemp. The drafts of the Constitution are made on hemp. Hemp's American. It's fantastic. So it's able to bridge this gap that we can't seem to bridge between every single person alive in the country. Why? We all have an endocannabinoid system. We're all suffering. We don't sleep right. We don't have regular bowel movements. We can all benefit together here. But that product has revitalized their neighborhood. Why? People came in so much pain. They give them a little bit of the gold. They can stand up. Now think about Monroe, Louisiana. I'm not trying to bag on Monroe, Louisiana, but it wasn't like a hotbed of like everything's organic. Right? There wasn't a giant farmer's market there selling all kinds of organic fruits and vegetables. He's changed the community. Oh, you got relief from pain? Let me talk to you about probiotics. Do you take fish oil? Do you take greens every day? You know you do need some greens. And then he's re-educating his entire customer base. So when it comes to getting this stuff, do we get it from marijuana or hemp? What's the difference? It's so confusing. I think I made it easy. Does anyone in here drink kombucha? Alcoholic? Just kidding. You get it? Now, at 0.5% alcohol, you can sell it to a 9-year-old girl with her mom in the car. Prebiotic, probiotic, gut microbiome, good for the brain-belly connection beverage. At 0.6% alcohol, what do you need? To be 21 or older. It could be a daiquiri. So it's really the percentage of THC is the difference between marijuana and hemp. The way the amount of alcohol, near beer, and tequila. Do we get it? Decaf and regular. It's not that complicated. But the problem is they have the same first and last name. Cannabis sativa. So you go to school, both of you, they call your names and you both raise your hands at the same time, same first, last name. Is that confusing? This confused things badly. So here's our take on it. Indoor marijuana, we don't think is sustainable the way it's being grown. And outdoor grown hemp may be textbook sustainability. So that doesn't look green or kind to me. That's an indoor marijuana grow. Here's hemp that we're growing outside. I'm going to burn through the whole presentation and that because we're recording this, and then I'm going to answer all the questions at the end, okay?
I just wanted to make one point.
Sure, go right ahead.
In
Wait, you want the microphone?
Okay. In the Area Medica of the United States, cannabis sativa is classified as hemp. What is known as marijuana is cannabis sativa forma indica, and in here it is classified as cannabis indica. So they're like kissing cousins.
Correct. They are kissing cousins. But it's very, very confusing because when we grow our hemp, just so you can learn this, when we grow our hemp and they test it and it has more than 0.3% THC, they call it marijuana. When we grow our hemp and it tests for more than 0.3% THC, the authorities call it marijuana. Fair enough? So we've got the book, then we've got what the law is going to do. And the law is at more than 0.3% THC, it's dope, and at 0.3% THC or lower, it's hemp. And that may not be 100% accurate, squaring with history, but that's how they're looking at it. So in any case, it looks more like bamboo when it's grown like corn, and it achieves an incredible goal if we can grow it like this. Price reduction. Price reduction. When I started, 100 milligrams was close to $200. It's down to $20 of our product. I've seen other products that are double, triple. You've seen it too, haven't you, Ray? Many, many expensive CBD products out there because it's hard to get the raw material because Prohibition has just ended. So we're managing 3,000 acres in Holland, in the Netherlands, and eventually we hope to have it here domestically. I'll show you here in a moment, in Kentucky. So here's the grow. It grows 20 feet tall. You can't do this in a greenhouse. And it's a great plant for the earth. Listen to this. This plant is an irreplaceable rotation crop in organic farming. So I see organic farming, rotation crops, being hemp, to get CBD, they're going to make more money growing the hemp than the organic produce. Okay? By the kilo weight, they're going to get 10 times more than soy or corn or tobacco, or think about that, revitalizing the economy as well. Hemp is also a quick growing. It grows 50 centimeters a month. Hemp with its rich leafage suppresses leaves and left on the soil after harvesting improves soil structure. So strawberry fields forever. You got to at least give credit where credit's due. I always share that slide from my mom. You have to have one good Beatles reference if we're talking about hemp. In any case, this is where we're currently getting. So all of our products now, it's grown in Holland. Monsanto, Cargill, DuPont have not been yet to Holland. There's no big chemical agri-farming in Holland. We did get non-GMO verification, and they wouldn't give me the butterfly before Expo of last year because it's hemp. Now there's non-GMO wine, which has no medical benefit at all, but eventually they're going to catch up. So my point is there's no GMO modification going on. I've got a competitor out there telling people that this is all GMO, and it hurts, right? I want fair competition. Don't say silly stuff. So we're transitioning to Kentucky, the Silicon Valley of hemp. At UK, I want you to meet one of the most exciting people that I've ever met in my life. I'm going to introduce you to, look at this smile. You see how happy this young woman looks? It's a small, can we dim the lights just for a quick second? Just somebody just hit the lights just for 1 second. I know we're recording this. Just don't want to miss this one picture.
The one thing people have to understand too, there is some hemp grown in China. You have to be alerted.
Oh no, as soon as I get to the finished product, when you see what we did for the testing, can everyone see her smiling face now? How cute is she, huh? She's amazing. This is the first human being in the world, and it happens to be a young woman, and it happens to be the company that I work at. So I'm pretty excited about this personally. First and only graduate student studying hemp-derived CBD research, and we've paid for her education. And everything that she learns is for you, and for us, and for the world. So that when you buy our products, that's where some of the money goes. And then we work with Murray State. Murray State is an incredible place. I want to introduce you to the Dean of Students there, my dear friend Tony Brannon, and look at him holding on to his cannabis. And he's saying, here's what he says to me, we are never going to have medical cannabis in this state until we are surrounded on all sides, and even then we're not going to have it. Because we're going to have hemp, because they're pro-hemp in Kentucky. Look at that smile on his face. This is history being made. These young men, Todd Howard and Nathan Hall from HF Farms, they're doing great work. So you can go down to Kentucky right now. You see our logo here, CV Sciences. Hemp research funded by CV Sciences in partnership with HF Farms. You can see this logo all over Kentucky. All over the farms there. Look at this grow. You see these two people down here? Look at how big that stuff's getting. So we're starting to get it growing in Kentucky, which will be great. Here's a project we're working with Yale and Patagonia to grow on strip mines. To grow hemp on strip mines. To turn that land into something, not to eat, but to make jackets in Patagonia with it. Hemp fibers. Really exciting stuff. And I want you to meet one of these young men I'm so impressed with. Here's Nathan Hall. He's also hoping to learn more about the market and policy processes that affect the viability of environmental projects. How, for example, does one influence policymakers to implement legislation that will encourage renewable energy and sustainable agricultural initiatives? Do you know how? Go to Yale! That's how. So it's so exciting to share with you the people that we're working with. WKU, they're doing great work. The average farmer is 59 years old. Is that good for America? No. Why are they hemp farming? It's cool. Forget the money part first. No, these are millennials. It's cool. They're making a difference. They're changing the world. They're making the world a better place. And don't we all remember when we felt that way too? Let's never give up the energy of how powerful it is to have every successive generation believe that they can change this place, right? We're in real trouble when they stop thinking that. Fair enough? So they're into this because it's cool, it's eco-friendly, and it's more profitable than tobacco, soybean, or corn. A more holistic view. So now they're talking about CBD in relationship to the hemp car as well. Remember the hemp plastic car? Right? The alternative to plastics. Ford even was working on a hemp car back in the day. And then finally about Kentucky, and then we'll move on. I want you to meet Arthur and Stacy Hancock. Look at this couple. Do they look like salt of the earth people to you? Now I know you might not recognize the name, the Hancocks, but Mr. Hancock, his father brought a very famous horse to our attention, Secretariat. I know you've all heard of Secretariat. And then they went on to follow 3 other Kentucky Derby winners on their land. Look at these people. They're growing hemp on their land. You think they're nervous about it? You know what their tagline is? We're just trying to raise you a good horse. Okay? Very humble, amazing people. So now let's dive into the products. Let's find out what's in there. When you look at our products, it says plus CBD oil. And sometimes you might wonder, what else is in there? What is it? We use the entire plant. The seed, the stem, the stalk, everything above the ground. We take the entire plant down, we put into a pellet, because it's hard to drag 20-foot tall wet cannabis plants around. Can you imagine that? We dry it and desiccate it and ship it to Germany next door, where it gets CO2 extracted in Germany and then sent to our laboratory in San Diego. So this big peak here in the middle is CBD, and this little tiny one down here is THC. See the little tiny, tiny, tiny one? So I would just ask the audience, is there anybody in our group here tonight that thinks you need large levels of THC for CBD to be effective? I'll ask that question again. Does anybody in this room think that you need THC for CBD to work? Does anybody believe that? Okay, you're the first group to not, you're different. You're traveling across the country. You're in California, you're in Washington, you're in other parts of the country, and they tell you, no, they think you need the THC for it to be effective. So let's ask Professor Meshulam. Does anyone recognize his name? He discovered THC. Okay? And the endocannabinoid system too. And he's still working in Israel, and he's the godfather of cannabis science. Let's see what he says. A group in Tel Aviv University has found that a single ultra-low dose, a very low dose, of 0.002 mg per kg, tiny bit, several orders of a magnitude lower than the conventional dose needed to get a mouse stone, protects the brain from different insults, including inflammation that causes cognitive deficits. Interesting, isn't it? So it's really a whole cacophony of plant compounds minus the THC. So it's pretty much everything you get in medical cannabis minus the THC, and you take it internally and you don't have to smoke it. Can you see why it's a bigger market? So let's show you what else is in there. You also get a ton of fatty acids because we use the seeds. GLA, gamma-linoleic acid, we've all heard that before, up to 7% GLA in hemp seeds. Pretty fascinating. Stearidonic acid, 18.4. 18.3 is ALA. 18.4 then goes to ETA, EPA, DPA, and DHA. So you could maybe increase omega-3 levels while you're eating your CBD every day because it's loaded with the fatty acids because we don't throw the seeds out. Does that make sense? The seeds are life. In the marijuana business, seeds are bad because they blow up the flower. So we want to use all of it together because we're after nutrition. We're not trying to get anybody intoxicated. Then the cannabinoids come from the leaf. And then you have the terpenes. Have you heard of the terpenes a little bit? It's the anchor of aromatherapy, right? Lemon, that has an effect on you. Lavender, that has an effect on you. We know that, right? This connection between the scent and the brain and the chemistry there. A lot of aromatic terpenes in the plant. Plant sterols, are those good, plant sterols? They sell some sterols here as dietary supplements to protect cholesterol from being atherogenic, among other things. Chlorophyll, should we eat chlorophyll? Yeah. How about vitamin E in all 8 of its natural isomers? That's all occurring naturally in the plants. So that when you take this product, has anybody in here used this stuff yet, the raw material? See a few people, show of hands. This is just 100% hemp plant. CO2 extracted, and look at the other ingredients. I'll read it. N-O-N-E. I don't know about you, I'm a label reader. Anybody else a label reader? I'm a label reader. And I make people nuts. Because they say, why'd you use glass? Why'd you use plastic? Like, no one can win with me, right? I had so much fun when we put this together. Other ingredients, N-O-N-E. That means nothing. So just so you understand, when you read the label, see hemp oil, aerial plant parts means everything above the ground. In 250 milligrams, there's 38 milligrams of CBD. What's the rest of it? There. Does it make sense? The rest of it are the fatty acids, the terpenes, the plant sterols, the chlorophyll, the vitamin E. It's a natural, complete matrix. Do you get it? This is how the earth made it. God, the universe, whatever you believe, this is how it grew. This is how it's best. Some believe. Some also believe, what about a standardized herb? Like, would it be even more powerful if you could concentrate it up to a standardized herb? Maybe, maybe not. Still a lot to learn in that area. I think they're different applications. Why would you take this one? Because you use food as medicine. If you're a food-based person, and food is going to be your guiding post, you use the green products. Let's say, however, that you had a very terrible pain situation, and you needed relief immediately. Use the higher concentration. We make this gold from the green. So does everyone know how we make concentrated fish? Does everybody know how? And let's indulge me for a few moments because this is important. Take regular fish oil, here's a capsule. You have this much EPA and DHA, and what's the rest of it? Saturated fat, omega-9, other fatty acids. We just push those out of the way and grab more EPA and DHA to put it into the ultimate omega capsule. Does that make sense? So there's less of the other stuff and more of the EPA and DHA. That's what we did with the gold. If you notice, there's no chlorophyll, the terpenes are different, and you have more cannabinoids here. So the gold is the most potent and powerful product that we have. So here you see 250 milligrams contains 60 milligrams of CBD. You see the difference? Where the green, here we had, back to this, a little green slide there. Okay. Oh, we just lost it. That's right, it disappeared. Okay. Oh, now we disappeared too. Okay, in any case, we'll continue going. So here you've got 250 milligrams that contains 60 milligrams of CBD. Are we all following it? Then we have a topical product. Why would you want to use it topically? Eczema and psoriasis, those are difficult things. We've all still been trying to fit. Is there an inflammatory condition? Is it a mite? Is it a bug that's in the skin? There's a lot of ideas around that. This contains the CBD in the acid form that can kill those little bugs. And when the bugs bite into the plant, like insects bite into the hemp plant, they hate the taste of it because it's so phenolic that you don't need pesticides on the stuff, which is good because then we don't have to deal with the pesticide issue. So this is for eczema and psoriasis or pain and muscle tension. That's what this is for. Now I would suggest pairing that with the internal product because although let's say you damaged your knee and it's big and swollen, In cannabinoid receptors, remember I told you they upregulate to bring you back to balance? Synovial fluid is rich in CB1 and CB2 receptors. So if there's a big damage and a bunch of flooding and edema and inflammation and swelling, rubbing that on topically, taking some internally, would definitely be the way to go. So in your little handout that you all have, you have this dosing chart. You don't need to rifle through there. We're on our home stretch here. We'll answer some questions. But this dosing titration chart's the way to go. It's the way to go. Because you can start slow and low, 3 milligrams the first day, 3 milligrams the next day, then up to 6 milligrams. If you wanted to make up your own and go 1 milligram, 2 milligram, 3 milligram, if you want to do 1 milligram a day for a week, 2 milligrams a day for the next week, 3 milligrams a day for the next week, this just to show you how you could do it. It's low and slow. So what are we trying to treat? The thing you haven't been able to successfully deal with. So let's not name it. If we name it and blame it, then we're playing doctor. You know, I know that you know we all have health challenges. The endocannabinoid system was discovered in 1992 and this stuff was under prohibition. We have a system and a tool to treat a wide array of conditions we never even knew existed. How exciting is that? That's the most exciting thing we could come up with. Because if improvement in symptoms is not seen during this initial trial of therapy, treatment should be stopped. Does it say it's going to treat, cure anything? Let's talk about any company, any brand, any disease. This is how we should be doing this, folks. This is how we can educate each other responsibly, collectively. Here's what I'm hearing. People say to me, Stu, I only take 6 milligrams a day. That's all I need. Why do you make a 25 milligram capsule? It's wasting money. I don't need that much. I just use a little spray. Great, that's our top medical advisor. Found the perfect product. I at one time was eating one of those little gold tubs a day. Every day. Can you imagine having to deal with this all the time? I mean, it's nuts, right? It was very helpful for me. I'm now taking 25 milligrams of CBD a day, and sometimes I forget. I just took a tiny bit today. Why? It's lipophilic, fat-loving, and you balance the endocannabinoid system, you're back in balance. You're better. It's not a patch. You're better. You were better. I might not need those doses anymore. So my point is you have to experiment. You get to be the boss of you. You get to be the boss of you. You get to know how you feel more than your doctor does. You get to be the expert on whether or not you're feeling better. You're going to know if you're sleeping better. If you still have back pain, it's not going to not go away. If it goes away, you know you got better. Does this make sense? This is how I want you to approach it. The caveat would be, if you're in horrible pain tonight, right now, you're sitting here, you're in physical pain, get some of the gold, take a little tiny bit, half of the recommended dose. Because with pain people, there's no 3 weeks to build up to it, is there? If you're in pain and they don't get relief from pain, they're not coming back 3 weeks later, are they? They need relief and they need it now. Now let's say you get to 25 milligrams, 16 sprays, and you think you're going to get carpal tunnel syndrome, you can just take a 25 milligram capsule. Or you're on your chart and you get up to 9 milligrams, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's already too much. Who wants to do that? You can take a 10 milligram capsule. So we're finding ways to fill in the product offerings. Ray hasn't seen this yet, but we have a soft gel coming of the gold. In the future, the green, and our raw product. So this will be a nice, easy, convenient way to do this. So let's wrap this up here in a few more slides. The reason why I think our products are unique, and the reason why I think you should seriously consider our company, is because we are vertically integrated. We are the first vertically integrated company in this space. From seed to shelf, we manage the entire process. And if you like knowing that when you buy our products, we take that money and we put it back into research and development to help revitalize the American economy and help heal everybody, that's a good reason to support a company, I believe. So we harvest, extract, import, test, third-party test, convert, formulate, and distribute. We only use CO2. We don't use any solvents. Ray made a point, the stuff coming out of China, where they're using chemical solvents and who knows what the stuff is, that's not our product. But please make sure that you know what kind of CBD you're getting. And I know this store is not going to carry any product that isn't thoroughly vetted. It's one of the great reasons that we still should shop in stores like this. Because they know a lot more, and trust me, they put these companies through the mill. They grill you. before you get in here, which is good, so you feel good about who's standing up here, okay? We have our own state-of-the-art laboratory, and you're welcome to visit. Anytime you're in San Diego, I'll make sure to get, my cards are in my bag, I'll give you my card, come to the laboratory, check it out yourself. A lot of CBD companies are buying things from people over the phone. They don't grow it, extract it, have their own laboratory, their own manufacturing, and we do. Third-party testing on every single batch. Now let's address some of the regulatory issues, and then we're going to answer some questions, okay? Earlier this year, 2016 in February, Nutritional Outlook wrote this article. Is it time for the hemp CBD dietary supplement industry to panic? Not at all, says insiders. Well, to be fair, one of the insiders that they quoted in there was yours truly. So of course I'm going to be Pollyanna. That's just my nature. But in the article, they talked to a toxicologist, a very important researcher. He says, I'm going to fix my little slide here, because this one you cannot miss. You got to see it right here. Okay. He concluded that the completion and publication of safety studies on a CBD-rich hemp oil product in a peer-reviewed academic journal specializing in toxicology will be, to the best of my knowledge, the first in recent times. There's been no tox work done on this plant since 1981. Not one major because what do they keep saying? We don't know if it's safe. Haven't you heard that? And that's that ambiguity. We don't know if it's safe. Well, what happens when we find out it's safe? Doesn't that change the narrative a little bit? A monumental step forward in putting real science behind a product, not an idea, but behind our product. I would have to conclude that the public and the FDA should applaud this effort as well as the time and expense that it requires. Check this out. The day I started at CV Sciences, we began this process. A 90-day repeated dose oral toxicity study. I had no idea a 90-day study would take 2 years. Because you do a 14-day study before that, and then there's all kinds of other things in between, and then you do the 90-day study. Once you get the results here, you determine the no observed adverse effect level, the NOEL, so that you can put it into the food supply. You can declare that your ingredient is generally recognized as safe. So this is about $800,000 later. We then have our manuscript, the toxicological assessment of CBD-rich hemp oil. Here's our company. This is now being submitted to the International Journal of Toxicology and potentially the Journal of Toxicology. We haven't decided which one we're to go with yet. Once that happens, we will have the only tested, proven safe hemp product in the market, period. Is that a reason to trust this company? It should be a huge reason to trust this company, because we did the research to make sure that it was safe and effective. And why is that important? How trustworthy are the following industries or institutions? This is Nutrition Business Journal, Q1 of this year. At the bottom is Congress. 20%. The dietary supplement industry is not much better at 38%. And why did it happen? Raspberry flavored ketones and green coffee bean, right? And the Oz effect. And it made us look like knockalooks to people that are serious about well-being and medicine. We handed it to them on a silver platter. Maybe not us, but our life, did we not? So what do we have to do? Be responsible in how we communicate. Please, preface everything with may. May. It may help. It may. Let's stop with diagnosing people. Do drugs cure people? No, they don't. Drugs don't cure anybody. They deal with symptoms. Let's keep that in mind. So rapid spread of this information online harms consumers and legitimate resellers of hemp CBD. We are committed to never, ever, ever exceeding the scientific data and respecting both the law and science, and please encourage you to do the same. It's our collective responsibility to get educated and to change perception. That influences public policy. And make sure whenever you use these products, are they members of the big trade organizations? We're members of the American Herbal Product Association. I want to see more CBD products in the market to create the market. I want them to be good, reputable companies that know what they're doing. So when you buy our products, every year we write a check to APA. It's based on sales. The more we sell, the more our dues. 15,000 for us to join because of what our sales were, right? 15,000 a year. We did about 15 million last year. Hemp Industry Association, Kentucky Hemp, all these groups, all of these cost money to belong to. So I just want you to get an idea of when you're supporting our company, what we do in return, and how much we value it, and what we want to do to make the world a better place. So in closing, this stuff may help with nervous system health. If you don't sleep right, and you're stressed out of your gourd, and you're still here shopping in a health food store, maybe time to try something new. Cardiometabolic health, you just can't get it. You just can't get that optimal metabolic burning rate. Calories in, calories out, it's complicated. It's a lot more complicated than we thought it was. You may want to try this. Stress resilience, recovery and adaptation in sports. If you have an idiopathic autoimmune condition, you don't know what's going on, you've tried everything, maybe dysfunctional endocannabinoid tone may, you like this, have something to do with it. That's the way to do it. And finally, for supporting GI health, I think it is hugely important for us to remember that if we don't have regular, consistent, healthy bowel movements, you are not going to be feeling good no matter what you do. The ECS is involved in that process absolutely positively. So my daddy had Crohn's disease, so I've inherited some of those genes. Intestines tied themselves up in knots. And I remember growing up in this industry, someone said, you can't be constipated if you're hydrated. Well, that might be a lie if your intestines are tying themselves up in knots, like mine were. And I've tried everything under the sun. I sleep all night long and have a regular bowel movement. That's an N of 1. You need to find out if you're a responder. I saw so many years people standing up here saying, this is what worked for me, and if you want what worked for me, do what I do. Well, that's stupid. That's ridiculous, because we're all so different. You might only need 3 milligrams, some people need more. So you have some homework assignment, and it's watching a video, that's it. All you got to do is go home and watch on YouTube The Scientist. There's the scientist right there. I had a chance to meet him recently. The scientist's name is Raphael Mechoulam, Professor Mechoulam. Does anybody here, has anyone heard of him before? Anybody heard of him? Well, come to me. Please, have you watched this yet, Ray?
I heard he was on the Gargoyle.
Yes. Oh no, he has not been on yet. Oh. They haven't got him yet. They got a couple of other docs. They haven't been able to get him yet. I think you heard Dr. Lewis or Dr. Anschel. This is the guy that discovered all of this. Yeah. So I want to close with this concept. Does everyone know the omega-3 story? In Greenland, right? They went to Greenland and they saw the Inuit were eating whale blubber but not having heart attacks. We've all heard that. And they didn't know what it was. They thought it was cholesterol killed you, but they were eating more fat and had higher levels of cholesterol. Paradox. That's where it gets exciting, right? They sent the blood to Denmark, Copenhagen, and they found they had mega high levels of omega-3. That was the first time they made this connection. The town where they made this discovery was called Umanak. It means heart. Meaning, can you make that up? Like, I love science. There's some other things that I like equally as much. I hope you're getting the point. His name translates from Hebrew into a cure from above. That you cannot make up, and that we had better respect. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us.
There is a raffle going on.
We got a raffle? Yeah, we're going to give away a basket here. We've got our green, we've got our capsules, we've got our gold, 3 flavors of our spray and our balm. And I think you're right, it's about $125.
Right, who's got the raffles?
Who's got the raffles? Who's got the raffles?
Jim, what do you got?
Who's going to win? So as we're figuring that out, did everybody enjoy the presentation tonight? Yeah.
So we're going into the cold and flu season.
Yes, sir.
What do you recommend for cold and flu, for example?
I'm so happy that you said that because I'm going fast tonight and I missed it.
Can you repeat the question when you get it?
Yes. We're going into cold and flu season. Is there a connection between the ECS and cold and flu? And thank you, because that's very important. Have we seen those commercials all night long for Humira? They play after the Viagra commercial, in between the Cialis commercial, then they go back to the Humira commercial, because there's only 3 products left to sell. I mean, facetious, right? Okay, so they're finally going to that. We're getting to the point where we're making fun of it. Humira is a TNF alpha inhibitor. What does that mean? It can dampen a hyperactive immune storm. Now, this might be very, very beneficial going into a virulent flu season. You see where I'm going with this? because CBD may be able to slow down aberrant hyperactive immune activity, which could be really, really, really good. So there are some people out there that believe, and these I've not yet seen this because it's not. We didn't have enough of this last year for cold and flu season, right? We've got some scientists that believe that that's an area that's going to pay tremendous dividends for influenza in particular. We've got a researcher who's studying right now with mice that she put in this little machine that she's got vaporizing, so the mice are actually running around in all these little CBD vapors and watching how their immune systems deal with things like influenza. So for the cold and flu season, this might be a wonderful new addition to our oil of oregano, the silver, and some of the other things that we take. Okay? So
that we might be taking, we should be concerned with the addition of CBD?
well, we've been looking for it. I would say if you're on anti-epileptic medication, let's say that you're on, what are we giving people now? Gabapentin, phenobarbital, Depakote, that's a big one. If you're taking all of those medications and you're taking CBD, you might run into the risk of what we call a little bit of polypharmacy. Because the liver pathway of detoxification, you've probably heard of P450, cytochrome P450, it's the metabolic fate of drugs. When we take pharma drugs, they have like one toilet pipe out through the liver, P450 pathway. Cannabinoids are a substrate for the same pathway, which means if you're on anti-seizure medication, I know this is a complicated question to answer, you're on anti-seizure medication and then you get a fungal infection and they give you antifungals. Now you block the port. Does that make sense? The port's busy because it's dealing with all these drugs. The cannabinoid levels then go up in the body and you might then have too much and not the right dose to control the seizures. That's not the average person, okay? But that is a potential drug-to-drug interaction. The day-to-day interactions with the normal things that we're taking and normal medications, we've seen many, many, many patients try to titrate down their pain meds and their SSRIs with CBD with great success. But don't do it alone. You just walk in and tell your doctor, I want to get off my opiates. Well, how are you going to do that? I'm going to use the CBD. Well, good luck. And then do it together. But we've not seen any big drug-to-drug interactions. Yes, ma'am?
My son's on Mexility. We have muscular dystrophy. They're giving him, it's an anti-seizure medication. They're giving him this medication to help with our muscles. I was thinking about letting him try this. He's 20.
Well, my opinion? I'm going to give you my business card. And we're going to run that by our medical and scientific advisory board.
I want to know.
We're going to check with them first.
Okay.
And then once they say it's okay, then you get it here at Holly Hill. But when there are very specific situations like that, we're trying to create a network where people feel like they can come to us and we're not going to give you a marketing answer. I hope that you could gain a sense of our being this evening, that we're going to be excited, but we're not going to try to sell you on an idea. Is that fair enough? And if the doc say it's okay, it's okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you. I'm going to stop for a moment just to do the
Raffle?
raffle because I don't want to hold anyone hostage. If anyone has to go, we get that.
Who's the winner?
So the winner is going to be a number that I'm going to float
Any
around.
normal winners, you know, we have the extra 10% off already discount prices.
Today. Everybody's a winner.
Can you repeat that?
Everybody's a winner.
What he just said.
We still have the products are 10% off anyway.
For a regular discounted price.
Extra 10% off tonight.
Additional.
Just tonight.
Additional 10% off our everyday.
Okay, so it's double winner.
Right.
What's the number?
And then the that winner is 0790756.
Bingo! You said you'd be a winner. Look at that, Tim. Okay, hey! You're a winner. You can write. Yes, ma'am.
Bingo, you have to check it. Checked and verified, yes.
Okay, drug test question. It came up. Let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, everyone, listen. This is the one question we should all hear. And if everyone's got to go, drug testing question came up. Okay, I have been evolving our answer on this, not like politicians evolve their answers, but based on science. And this is now my hardline answer. Do not take any hemp products ever if your job requires that you not fail a drug test. Say it again. Don't hemp seeds, hemp seed oil, and then there's a list of products online. Selsun Blue, Twix, there's some candy bars. False positives, serious. Drug tests, weird preservatives or stuff that's in there. Do not take any hemp product at all. It's not worth the debate, ever, period. Okay? Now let's back that off a little bit. We'll give you some science. If you're 600 pounds and you take 4.5 milligrams of THC, you're testing positive. If you're 50 pounds and you take 4.5 milligrams of THC, you're testing positive. That's about the threshold, about 4.5 milligrams of THC, and about anyone's going to test positive. You need to drink 2.5 bottles of the spray to get 4.5 milligrams of THC. Is it possible that you'd open them all up and drink them all at the same time? Unlikely, but possible. So I just want everybody to know that we're taking a hard-line stance because we live in such a hyper-litigious society with ambulance chasers and class action lawsuits. So if you're following it as it is directed, with those low levels of THC, no one is tested positive. But if it's somebody that thinks that they're going to be in a risky situation, don't take the gold. The gold is the highest concentration. Stick with the sprays and follow the amount that's on the label. No one has ever tested positive. Using it as directed, nobody. Now people that decide to go cuckoo nuts and start eating tons of it all the time, that may be, because a urine test doesn't tell the difference between CBD and THC. The simple urine test cannot, molecularly the stuff is so close. Then when they do a blood draw and they send it in and find that it was cannabidiol and not THC, you might have already been fired. So it's not even worth, I see some head nodding back there, it's not even worth it. We just say no, if you have to pass a drug test, even if it's hemp, it doesn't matter, you still could get a false positive. Fair enough? Yes. Oh, we'll give a file break real quick. Oh, yes, this one right here. Yeah, it's called The Scientist. I type in The Scientist and put in CBD, and it'll come right up. What's The Scientist and then CBD? That's the ingredient we're talking about, CBD. Yes, ma'am.
Two things. One, so it is legal to grow.
Okay, the question is it legal to grow here? Only if you're a university.
And the second one is, I was calling my doctor tomorrow to ask her to increase my trazodone medication for the pharmaceutical.
Yes.
And with that, I'm taking 5 milligrams of
She's taking melatonin and trazodone. And so I'd bring this up to your doctor.
I was just going to do it tonight.
I mean, that's what I would. I mean, I would get it. I'd bring it in and say, hey, doc. Like, I think we should all make ourselves our health advocates with our doctors.
So may I ask a follow-up question
Sure.
to that? What do you think the likelihood is that this nice person or any other of these people here takes that bottle in, goes to their doctor and says, hey, doc, I was at Holly Hill Health Food last night, and I was at this event, this talk, and I heard that this may have, using your language, may have some benefit for this, that, or whatever your personal, reason for buying it. What do you think the likelihood is? Twofold. First part is he or she going to know what it is? Even have heard about it? And what do you think the likely answer is going to be?
I'm surprised. I'm happily surprised. The answers are better and better. They're more and more shocking every year. I've been telling everyone, anyone's ever listening to me on the radio, I've been on the radio for 20 plus years, don't practice medicine on yourself. Talk to your primary care. I've been saying that for years, and people don't. This particular subject, because of the Sanjay Gupta connection, and because of the government patent, and because of the ECS and everything that's on PubMed, they stand back and say, well, I think there's something here. So just so you know, we spend a lot of time working in the professional medical community. I do half of my shows in health food stores, the other half are in doctors' offices. So I'm surprised, happily surprised, docs are very open to this. So I'll stick around and answer some other questions. Thank you very, very much. I'll make my cards available and I'll stay here to answer questions, okay? Thank you very much.